It's a new week, so there's a new AI tools announcement. Of course, it looks like late yesterday, Claude, the team decided to release something called Claude Cowork, which, listen, I didn't know much about until this morning. So I'm new to this. I may not have explored all of it, but I figured I'd give you a try or maybe just an overview of what I've tried so far. It looks like something very similar to the ChatGPT desktop app. So Claude Code is what we're using for code all the time, of course, and you can use it for more than that if you want to. There's also the Claude Desktop app, and yesterday there was an announcement for essentially a new tab or a new area within the Claude Desktop app to allow you to start working with things on your desktop, like files, things like that. So, of course, I read the announcement, watched some videos this morning. There wasn't too much news about it. There was a little bit of talking about how to use it. There was a demo, for example, on YouTube that was more marketing, I'd say, than anything else. So I kicked the tires a bit, tried to install it in my VM to containerize it, keep away from the rest of my operating system, and failed spectacularly. So I'll show that here. So it looks like what's happening is it's actually running virtualization, which is fantastic. In fact, I shouldn't be complaining, but unfortunately for me to run this in a VM would mean virtualization on top of virtualization. So that didn't work. So I started using essentially my studio Mac. So my powerful Mac at home is my personal box. Probably shouldn't have. I didn't realize how it was actually working. What I realized is that you don't actually share sessions between these. So the one VM on one workstation won't actually share a session with another. So when I went to my Mac Mini, for example, to start up a new demo for this recording, it was empty, but I'll be able to show both. So I figured I'd give you a quick overview of what I've been playing around with, what I thought worked, what is maybe a little bit more maybe worrisome in terms of security, and then ways that you can work around those. All right, so the first thing up, if you log into a new computer, you'll notice over here on the chat side, there's a new tab. So there's code, which you've probably seen before, but there's also Cowork. Now, apologies, this is a little bit small. We'll zoom in a little bit here, but it looks like there's a few things that are recommended in terms of ways to go. So creating files, crunching data, organizing, making a prototype, prep for the day, and send a message. Full disclosure, I did not organize files because I've been burned by this before. So I was very careful, let's say, to not move files around. Also, I did watch a YouTube video where somebody lost, I think it was 11 gigabytes of YouTube videos as they were kind of making their demo. And it's just that this kind of thing can happen. If you run out of space, maybe the model doesn't know what to delete. We'll take some educated guesses, but they might not be what you want. So this is why I was trying to isolate this as much as possible. But Paravert is not going to work. We can talk about a little bit of like the session that I had and what we got working. So over here, we've got my other session, and I've got a few of them set up. I'll talk about the last one that I did. So I just told it to create a Sandbox IDE prototype. And this is similar to something that we've talked about before. You can see it scrolling through my session. The screen does blink a little bit, I noticed, as you're working with it, which is not great. And sometimes you won't actually see the things on the bottom until you scroll a bit. I'm not sure if you noticed that. It scrolled down all the way, but it sort of missed the artifacts. There are a couple bugs with the GUI. It's a brand new tool. And as far as I can tell, Claude Code was actually used to vibe code this tool. So it's something that was built entirely from LLMs. There might be some rough edges because it's early days. Regardless, one of the things you can do here is open in Google Chrome. I will not do that, but what I could do is actually just open this in the tab, which I'll do now. Now, on the right-hand side, that you can see that it's got Claude and Chrome turned on, as well as web search for the session, just because I was doing a lot of web research in order to get it. Now, there is only one HTML file, which we're going to open up here, and I'll see if I can make this a little bit bigger. So all I was saying is like, hey, find an operating system that's got a license that's acceptable to what we're doing. I happen to know it's OmniOS CE is what we want. And then let's talk about ways that we could run Linux on essentially what could be Solera. So I thought this was pretty good. It had to do a lot of research in order to get here. The design is pretty good. And I thought the actual layout is not bad either. Now, again, there's a bit of that gradient going on that I think you and I will talk about. That the SaaS vendor sort of color scheme is certainly happening. And it almost looks like not Bootstrap, not Tailwind, but something in between. A lot of these vibe coded apps have a similar sort of look. And Claude Code and Claude itself in particular tends to make sites that look like this. But that's all right. I thought this was okay. It did a lot of research in order to get here. And all I told it was start creating something that looks like this for me. Now, if we go back to a few of the other ones here. So remember, there are different prompts as we started. I clicked on most of them. So let's see. Let's talk about analyzing the market, for example. Let's talk about the models. I'm just going to click allow to preview these. Now it can create, you'll notice on the top here, this is a DOCX file. And if I scroll through, it knew my name, which is kind of interesting. And apologies, this is a little bit small, I realize, but it's basically creating you a Word doc with a bunch of stuff here. And then if I wanted to, I could actually tell it to create a a PPT file as well, or I can get it to generate different types of files because there are different adapters, I believe they're called. So I'm just going to open up another one here. And this one is just a LinkedIn message. So this is one, the create a message one. And it looks like, I'm just going to grab this thumbnail here and see what it looks like. Again, we're just going to allow the preview. So the design's pretty good. It's got your name on it, of course. And it's just talking about like a quick, how would you get someone's attention basically for something like a preview thumbnail? What would that look like? And I just picked one of our episodes just to grab, and it can actually go through and start creating things, which I thought was neat. Again, I'm just giving a quick overview of these and how it works, but a lot of the times what it will do is create a website and a screenshot or something like that. There's also a ping in here. I asked to do that. I will say on the left-hand side, I had already asked it to do something, which it fixed, that it is now rerunning for some reason when I open the session again. So I had already asked that question before, and it's still continuing on with the session, which is interesting. Again, I feel like this might be a bug, but it does feel like sometimes when you're replaying the old history from other sessions, it might continue on. In this case, what it was doing was asking me a question. It will often ask for more precision, essentially, more details for a task at hand, which is great, but sometimes it'll have timers that count down from 10 seconds, 5 seconds. If you don't catch it quick, you need to go in there and hit escape and go through again. But when it does come up, what you can do is just hit one of the number keys on your keyboard and go through. Okay, so it said it made the file. It already had the file, which is what we're looking at here. That's totally fine. I told it to make a ping from the HTML file that we were looking before. Okay, I just got a couple more demos here, but one of the ones that I thought was really powerful, and this is kind of one of those questions that I've had for a long time. Now, again, you can see it's going through. It might get stuck here and start re-spooling. I think we're okay. You can see at the end here, my last prompt was about the XAI news. We'll talk about that in a second here. So if we go in, one of the things that I noticed in this, and this is just like an overview. So let's assume that maybe on Tuesdays I do recordings with Jason. I might have another podcast recording, and maybe I've got a meeting with Taiji. That sort of describes my Tuesday. So another member of the team. The question is, what do I need to know before I get on these meetings, or what do I need to tell people about in terms of news? So there's a lot of news, obviously, that happened, and it caught Claude Cowork, and it also caught the fact that I was going to be talking about it in this session, which I thought was pretty funny. And it says you're demoing this today, which is like great. That's fantastic. Also, that it launched yesterday because we were looking to grab news that was a little bit more recent. Oh, my apologies. Sorry, I'm just trying to move this in a little bit. It is a little bit small, I'd say, at like a different resolution. So this is 1080, but it is a little bit difficult to scroll through. Now, this XII news was actually in here twice, so I prompted it to not do that. But if we scroll down a bit, there's quite a bit of news. There's international news, so things happening in terms of Quen, or in terms of, I think it's Jipu, the IPO that's starting soon, so Z.AI. And then it gave me like what I'm doing this afternoon, which I thought was pretty nice. With a little timeline here. Ignore the fact that these bubbles are a little bit to the right of the line, but not bad. So it's talking about what I should talk about, blogs that I should come on. So Simon Willison was up there. And then, yeah, so the key quote, I guess, would be, it feels much like back and forth and much more like leaving a message for a coworker. I'm not sure if I agree with some of these quotes, but it did do a lot of research, which I thought was great. And it said, go through what the demo should look like. All of this was great. I thought it actually was quite good in terms of finding new news, talking about a demoing, and give me a kind of a workflow. I also, for the one with Taiji, I told it to essentially find out who Taiji is, and then what my relationship with Taiji is, and then map that out. So it goes through my meeting with Taiji, some things I might need to know. Full disclosure, I've worked with Taiji for a couple of years here, so I don't need all that stuff. But if we scroll down, there is actually a relationship map in here. And again, this is very tiny. Sorry, you don't need to squint and try to see it. But what I found interesting is for a lot of these, what you could do is say, hey, why don't you try visualizing this in something like Mermaid, and then mark that up within the HTML and make it match the theme. Now, the last part is key, because Mermaid diagrams, though they're wonderful, often don't match the theme that you've got, and it's glaring because they use a lot of primary colors. I think specifically is what causes me some pain. But I thought this was actually quite good. Again, this is just a quick overview of what my day is, but I thought for the apps that we've used and tried going through this exercise before, this is definitely the best. I think that's it in terms of things that we want demo. I think this last one is just the same thing. So it's the same sort of cue about golden signals. The only difference with this one is it created a PowerPoint file. So I told it that that doc that we created before, similar to the DOCX, was great, but also what if we could use this as a slide deck? Now, I told it to create it in the Datadog theme. I'm not sure if you can see that top left, but that's definitely not the Datadog logo. That's not Bits. It's created some other dog, which is fine. As a starting point, I thought this was good. And actually, I thought it did a pretty good job of actually like going through the signals. So as a brainstorming exercise, I'm not sure if I agree with this or not, but as a brainstorming exercise, I thought this was a pretty good lay of the land in terms of golden signals that we're currently using on the DevOps space and what the current problems that are emerging from Gen AI apps are. And a lot of these models will come to a similar conclusion, but this one, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 7. But the conclusion is that the things that you monitor for normal apps might be a little bit different for Gen AI. Anyway, and I just told it to make a quick slide deck. It made 7 slides, which I thought was good. So imagine something that's maybe like a lightning talk, something like that. Those quick slide decks that you got, or maybe it's a topic and you want to grab this and put it into. So I wouldn't say that this is the best slide deck, but I thought it did a pretty good job of, one, finding my title via web search, finding the spelling of my name, for example, finding who I'm working for. So all of this was done by using web search. So I told it to find out who I am and put me in the slide. I think the last one that I told it to do is, oh yeah, there we go. And you can see that I typed it wrong. And I asked it to a bio, but it didn't actually necessarily do that. And I think it lopped it off when I came back, unfortunately. All this to say, if you're looking for something to show you how to quickly get started with Claude Cowork, I think what you can find is using those little buttons that it comes with are actually really good recipes to get you started.
Okay, so just follow their instructions. Copy your bio, put it in the slides. It seems like you're right. It does a lot of the same things that we saw with like the OpenAI version of this that came out, just giving you more control locally, which that's like a frontier that some of us have kept, I guess, at bay a little bit, is to not let it get to that point. But clearly, we're to the point where that's something we gotta safely figure out. So interesting to see this come up now.
You got it. Yeah. My main concern about this type of tool is making sure that they're not open to prompt injection. So if there's a malicious file on your desktop or you've cloned down a GitHub source repository that's got some malicious prompts in there, just be careful of that when you're opening up the files. I'm sure I'll find a box to play around with the file organization with, but that was my main concern when trying to isolate this, is basically making sure that there's no random files out there that could tell the model to do something that I don't want it to.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Ryan. Well, appreciate you showing us that, and looking forward to the next one. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Have a great one.
Bye.